This is my 91 240SX. I've had it for almost 20 years. I've done multiple engine swaps, transmissions, front ends, and it used to be my competition car a decade ago. But now, the competition's different, the feeling's different, so it's time to upgrade what I have. Today, Camshaft. This is a 5/16 dowel rod. Can we get it? Just barely, maybe. There we go. 5/16 dowel rod. Next, you're going to need the camshaft. This is the one that I'm using here. There's the seal kit that we're going to be using for this. So I don't have any coolant or water. I don't have any water left in the radiator after draining it over the winter. So I made this real easy for the time being. And that's it. Now I can pretty much just undo the hoses, pull off the power steering cooler, and unplug the single plug for both fans, and I can pull the entire radiator assembly out, which is really, really cool. Take our steam port hose off. Now, if you get really good screw clamps, worm gear clamps, hose clamps, whichever name you want to use the same size as the 6-in-1 thermostat hose or lower hose. And this will be the last thing that we do before the start of the season. It's 1 week before the event with EK in Indy. So it's pretty tight as far as time goes. So after all this gets done, Tuesday is when we're doing the tuning. So hopefully we get everything done. Got the fuel done. Got the wiring issues that were going on over here. Some of the wiring melted, so I got that repaired. Also, the 200 amp fuse blew at LS Fest. So we got that taken care of. I got an additional fuse now. Good deal. Those look like they weren't having fun anyway. Now that everything's disconnected, should just be able to pull this out real nice and easy. GM really loved using 15s on all of this here. (15/16) is the socket we're going to be using here. Okay. All right. That works. That works great. Yeah, it's coming. The only problem with this is having to readjust the bolt, because that's what I'm using as my backer. I think I may have found a solution. I found a junk socket. Oh, seems to be working well. Woo! Works extremely well. Got 2 bolts here on the pan that we need to get off here. And if you forget to do these 2, you're going to have a big problem. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts to get off here. Junkyard engine. That's what they do for you. We'll try and get that cleaned up a little bit, and then we're also going to replace front main seal as well. So before we get into here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the rocker arms off. So I'm going to take the valve covers off. We're going to take all that out, and then we're going to get back down there. This dot here needs to match up with this dot down here. See if we can get in there nice and close. That is the gear on the crank. And that's the gear on the cam. So those dots should be lined up. We can kind of see that down there. Dot and dot. Here and here is what those dowel rods go through in order to keep the lifters up in those cups, and then we can pull the cam out. Now we're going to try and get this big screwdriver in there. Can't work this cam out.
What I forgot to add here was that you need to rotate the camshaft as well. And in rotating the camshaft, it pushes the lifters up into the cups, and that allows you to put the dowel rods through. If the dowel rods are not going through easily, keep rotating that cam to make sure that those lifters stay up where they need to be, and then you can put the dowel rods through in order to keep those lifters where they're supposed to be. If not, and you pull the camshaft out, you have an opportunity of dropping those, and then you have to tear everything down.
There we go. All right. Cam's out. Now let's see. Looking for any damage. Went ahead and picked up a new thrust plate. Can't really just get the gasket by itself. So, not gonna hurt my feelings any though. We'll show the difference here between these. See if we can get it zoomed in there. There we go. See how we're raised there off the plane? Kind of hard to get that to zoom in. A little bit there. We can see how there's at least a lip there. And on this old one, nothing. So it's a failure point. Mighty nice. So what I did here, just got a couple of wood blocks that we're going to set down and space it out. Allow us to go ahead and get that seal out. Now this uses the crank in order to balance everything. as far as centering and placement and everything else. Just making sure that the seal sets flush. I should be good to go. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Theoretically, I can spin this around. Don't feel any hang-ups or anything. It's nice and lubricated and spinning nice. Okay. Pull the dowels out. There's one. And there's the second. It just feels like you have a little bit better control with it. This is a T40, by the way. And just one more time for good luck. Still spins freely. All right, now we're putting in the cam gear. This one seems to be about 26 foot-pounds. Chain up. Oh, that couldn't have went smoother. Making sure the marks are lined up. The rest of the bolts in place. This tool here is not putting much as far as torque on those things, so we should be okay. Now they got all the old gasket cleaned off. We're going to put a little drop of black silicone in these corners here. And the reason for that is anytime you have three metal surfaces or three surfaces in general trying to seal against each other, they're never going to get a perfect seal. So it's always nice just to put a little silicone there. Let's just spin the crank around, make sure that we don't have any issues. Well, I would say I don't see any issues. There's our marks line back up. Man, and they do. All right, cool. You want these loose, we can go ahead and get them started. Just make sure you get over your oil pan gasket as well. What I'm using for my 5.3 is actually a 2010 Camaro 6.2 liter water pump, LS3. And the reason for that is they match up fairly well, so that's good. And they match up because the spacing on the crank, according to ICT, is a -3. And so is the LS3 crank pulley. LS3 crank pulley. It's a -3. So the water pump fits up really nice because of the correct spacing. You don't have to worry about getting spacers and adapters and stuff like that to run LS1 pumps. Well, why would I want to run this pump, you might ask? Well, the reason for running this pump is because it changes the water neck location. So instead of it coming up out over here, it actually comes out right here. Well, that kind of puts it at another weird predicament, because majority of LS swaps, they use LS1 engines. They use LS1 water pumps or LS2s. And this one's different because it doesn't have the water neck coming out here. So with it coming out here, it actually matches up with an SR radiator fairly well. And during the initial introduction, I was using an SR radiator. Turns out, I get to use a triple pass radiator helping with the cooling issues. So I get a better pump, a higher flowing radiator. The cooling problems really haven't been too bad, but with the limited amount of airspace up front, it could be better. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with where we're at. Make sure we're all aligned. Yep. Find out.